Hello, everyone, and welcome to Coast to Coast. I am your co-host, Beyond 716, and I'm live here from Southern California, joined, of course, by the man, the myth, the legend, Whittle 2K from New Jersey. How are you today?
Yeah, I had to unmute, man. I apologize.
There, it's a, it's all good. We've been there. So, welcome
Technical
to what's
technical
episode.
difficulties.
Hey, it's all part of the joy and the allure of this podcast, right, Whittle? So, I
Yeah,
believe this is episode 4 we're up on right now. So, should be a
sir.
great one coming up. Just to give you a quick intro into the pod, we're going to talk about our 23-19 win over the Colts coming up, and we're going to have a special guest coming up to discuss our game against the Steelers. We also want to thank from last week Megan Hall, sports writer, media personality, and CEO of Hall About Sports. She did a phenomenal job breaking down the Colts, and I learned more about the Colts in that 30 minutes than I have in the last 5 years. So if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it last week if you want to dive into the Colts. And we look forward to having her again in the near future.
Yeah, if we play them in the playoffs or something, they gotta step their game up a little bit. But I like the Colts, man. That was a fun game. So last week, man, we played the Colts in the preseason. Uh, you know, I'd say I think it was an easy win for us. Um, Running backs look great, offensive line look great, the defensive line look great, the depth in both areas of the trenches look great. Um, really like the fact that Latavius Murray got some snaps. Um, Darrington Evans looks like a return guy that might make the team, and Jordan Mims, man, rookie out of Fresno State, undrafted guy.
Yes.
I did a little looking into him after I saw him at the Shrine Bowl. Absolutely killed it out there. So, um, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens over the next couple of weeks for him. But yeah, man, we got a big show coming up, bro. Big show
We
today.
we really do. And I think just the one thing about, and we're going to talk more about last week, but I smell a trade coming, Whittle. That defensive line depth we have is almost, I mean, embarrassment of riches we're showing right now in that respect. I just think this signals a big baller being traded. I just can't see something not coming, and we're going to dive into who that could be, who you think it could be. But I would be almost shocked if we don't see something come in the next week or two on that front.
Well, well, it better be a right tackle because we lost one to retirement. So, but
Yes,
we don't want to stay there too long. Um, you know, Next week. I mean, not next week, but this weekend. What we got going on, Beyond?
oh, we do. I mean, we got a game against Pittsburgh this weekend. It's going to be a big test for our offensive line, Whittle. Like, we saw some good things out of, Torrance and even Spencer Brown. It was nice to see. But this week's going to, it's a totally different animal with the Pittsburgh Steelers coming into town. So I'm actually excited that we're playing them because of how great their defensive line is and their defense in general. So I think it's a great test, a little stress test before we start the season to see really where we stand on that front.
Absolutely. This is one of those games, man, where it not only is gonna test our trenches, but it's gonna test the depth. It's gonna test like can we hold up against a playoff team? Can we hold up against a playoff caliber, franchise? And I mean, because this is such a big game, we had to bring in a very special guest. We had to go and get one of the savants, one of the great minds of the NFL, a very entertaining, brilliant individual. You know, I got this guy's phone number. Like I could reach out and we bounce draft stuff off of each other. We did a whole bunch of looking into these draft prospects, and I mean I learned from him, and I hope that
Mhm.
he gets some nuggets from me from time to time. But I mean this guy is as sharp as it gets when it comes to this football thing. I want to introduce the one, the only guru, sports guru to the building. Let's get him on the pod right now. Let's get him
All
in here.
right. There he
Fellas,
is. What's going
What's up,
on?
man?
How you doing, man?
Good.
Good,
Thanks for
man. How
joining
you
us,
doing,
Guru.
man?
It's a
Man,
pleasure, man.
shout out to the coast to coast, man. It's an honor to be here, man.
It's an honor to have you. So how's everything going out there?
Everything's good, man. Just getting excited. Training camp. Padded practices. Had a couple off days, so just back in the fold, man. And then just
Mhm.
enjoying not just football with the Steelers. A lot of injuries have happened. A lot of NFL breaking news. So you're just trying to stay woke, man. But I'm excited to be here, man. I really am.
Oh, it's an honor to have you, Guru. I've listened to you quite a bit on the spaces, and I know your knowledge just comes through so through and through. And I've told this to Whittle many times; he can attest to that.
Absolutely. Likewise.
So,
With Whittle being a phone call away, like express the same discernment, and you too, Beyond, been in spaces
mhm.
or to do a great job. So absolutely.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Steelers, Bills. We're no strangers to each other. We've seen each other over the last few years. Um, we had that opening night, that opening day game. Steelers took that one against Buffalo. What was that, 20-16 or something like that? Something like
Right.
that.
TJ Watt
Yep.
Yeah,
fumble, right?
No,
yeah,
TJ
yeah.
was a monster that game. I could still see that.
Melvin Ingram too, man. Melvin Ingram gives us hell wherever he goes, man. So Melvin Ingram gave us hell that game, man. And then we got a little revenge last year. Put it on the boys a little bit. Josh and Gabe and Steph, they had big days, man. We really threw the ball. We really moved down the field very very quickly. Like a lot of big plays that game. We were able to put up 38 points. But one thing that stands out from that game is the emergence of Kenny Pickett. I just felt like that was when, like, I watched him when he was at Pitt. I watched him when he had Addison. And then when he lost Addison, he still made plays. So I thought that was the first game when you actually saw, like, that was one of those games where you looked at it and was like, okay, they might have something here. Kind of similar to like Josh, man. When we had Josh, it was like 2018 was kind of rough. He didn't really start, but then he started. Then he took over kind of like mid-season. I think it was like week 5 or 6 or something like that. He came in and he was starter for the rest of the year. But throughout there, you had your mistakes. You saw different things that you were like, he's a rookie. But then there were some moments where you were like, you may have something here. Like this kid can play a little bit. And then it just grew into year two. Year 2, you saw the maturation. You saw better decision making. You saw him get a better grasp on the speed of the game and the different things that were taking place in front of him. He was able to read the defense a little bit better. He was able to navigate the pocket a little bit more. So I think that from where Josh was, Kenny Pickett, where he was last year compared to where Josh was his rookie year, Kenny Pickett's ahead of him. The athletic traits are not the same, but certainly the mental part of it, the ability to navigate the pocket and understand where the raw dynamics of a natural quarterback. Kenny Pickett is way ahead of where Josh was in his rookie year. So year 2, man, I only expect to see I expect to see Kenny Pickett to do some more, but we're gonna talk about Kenny a little bit later, man. Guru, man, talk to me a little bit about your history with Steelers and Bills, man. What pops up in your head when you think about those teams?
Just the familiarity, with the two head coaches spending time and William and Mary together, and then both of them be defensive oriented, of a style in terms of their background, and then the rise in terms of their culture. It's actually a funny thing when you look at these two teams. I know the quarterback, I know that a lot of the other players might be tilted Buffalo, but you look at the infrastructure and the leadership, from the guy that's leading the men. It's so many, intricacies. I believe Alan Williams, the DC of the Chicago Bears, also was on that staff at William and Mary. So just right there is probably the most initial connection. And then on top of it, the football teams, you look at, the type of fans, you look at the upbringing of the organization. I think they're similar, right? Hardworking, foundation. And then on top of it, they love their football. They really do love their football, man.
Absolutely. I mean,
Absolutely,
Guru,
absolutely.
there's many times when over the years, I've been a Bills fan since the '80s. And if somebody asked me, what organization would you like to model yourself after? Pittsburgh came off my tongue many times, right? Like there's a lot of similarities between the markets, just the consistency Pittsburgh has shown at such a high level. I mean, obviously the Super Bowls and all that, but not even just that, just the commitment to the, to like Mike Tomlin, right? Not doing knee-jerk reactions and saying, okay, he didn't have as great a year as we want, we're going to move on. No, you stick with them because you know what you got. So I've always appreciated that about the Steelers.
Yeah, and then on top of it, you look at the team's success. The Buffalo Bills playoff wins since 2000. You look at the Pittsburgh. You look at all of the dynamic of teams that have been winning, the culture, and just most of all, like I said earlier, the foundation. These are two, I think, franchises that have a lot of respect. Look at the global impact. Aren't you guys playing abroad? Mexico City has a big influence for Pittsburgh, so you have a global impact as well.
Yeah, there was a chart that came out. It was floating around Twitter. If I knew the conversation was going to go this way, I would have pulled it in. But it was showing like the different influences of the NFL franchises, where like Dallas kind of is the biggest, has the most following in the United States. And then you go to different parts of the world and you'd be surprised, but like, who would have thought the Buffalo Bills had a huge following in like Russia? I had no clue until I saw that. So, but I get it, man. The snow, it makes a lot of sense. But let's move on to what's happening this season, right? So we're getting ready to start the season in a couple of weeks, and obviously prior to preseason OTAs and things like, you got the offseason, you got free agency, you got the draft and things like that. And that's what we're gonna get into a little bit now. You guys had the Steelers. You guys had some losses in free agency this year. Devin Bush, Robert Spillane, Cam Sutton. Can you talk a little bit about what the void those guys left and how you and what you did to replace those players?
Yeah, so definitely the inaugural start off for Omar Khan, first time being the general manager after Kevin Colbert retired. Also, Andy Weidel, first time ever having an assistant general manager position. He jumps in the fold as well. So the free agency actually was a little bit of something that Steelers fans were perplexed about, because we didn't know the direction or what type of impact that Omar and Andy would like to attack. You talked about Cam Sutton. I think the biggest loss by far, because of the positional flexibility, because of the snaps, and most of all, because of the football IQ. Some guys, they don't have the athleticism, so their IQ makes up for it. And he did it at a high level, playing at a career level last year. The Raiders game, the Bengals' first game, made big-time plays to take the football away and get the Pittsburgh Steelers an extra opportunity to have a football from a advantage standpoint. Then you look at, you talked about, we got Larry Ogunjobi last year. However, Chris Wormley left, Tyson Alulu left, so the 1 tech and the 3 tech possibly were positions that we had a couple concerns with. We were able to get Brandon Fehoko and Armon Watts, Fehoko from the Chargers, Armon Watts from the Chicago Bears. Both guys that have positional flexibility, can play anywhere from the 1 and the 3. However, Fehoko is your traditional space eater, like a Jordan Phillips, somebody that can take on double teams that you have in the goal line, a short yardage situations that will step the guard and the center from generating a point of contact. Patrick Peterson came on the fold to possibly replace Cam Sutton. He's a guy, first of all, that has he's not only a first ballot Hall of Famer, but his character, you think a lot of the younger guys, they look up to him. So just that in the locker room, no matter, that's tangible. And then on the football field, most interceptions last year, I believe since 2012 in his career. Not a Cam Sutton. I don't even think he'll probably be one of the better corners of football, but his value will kind of be like a Joe Hayden. When you have a young secondary, you need a guy that comes in free agency that might be on its way up, but he still can, touch, help, before he leaves. And that's what he's doing in the cornerback room. But most of all, he's helping guys like Darnell Washington. He's helping so many guys on the team because of his experience, and he has safety capability. Training camp, we've had a couple of injuries at the safety position. He's been able to actually get some snaps there. But pretty much the Cam Sutton is probably the biggest void. I think acquisitions, it starts with Isaac Seumalo. I mean, you look at a guy that's a top 5 guard in the National Football League. Watch Jason Kelsey, I love that podcast. He came on there and said that, Isaac Seumalo is the smartest football player that he's ever played with. So just to get that in the fold, the first game you all talked about, not only Kenny Pickett struggling, your defensive front took a lunch money from the start to finish. We couldn't hold up, and you got to be able to hold up against elite teams, teams that play in the AFC Championship, if not the year prior. So you have to be able to hold up, and that's what Isaac Seumalo is going to do. But the leadership, I keep talking about leadership. Landon Roberts, this is the guy that's two-time Super Bowl champion, but also a two-time leader, team captain on his team. Then you bring in another guy in terms of a vet that possibly, can lead the room in terms of Quan Alexander that just came, maybe 2 weeks ago, and the timing is perfect. I thought he played very well for the Jets. Certain guys on the football field, their impact is greater than what shows up on the box score. You feel them, you're able to run out there and believe in them. So those are just a couple of I think Cole Holcomb as well. Those are the linebacker room. A funny thing about the linebacker room, Devin Bush, you talked about him, Robert Spillane, Miles Jack. Landon Roberts by himself had more tackles for loss, more interceptions, and more sacks than the entire linebacker room. So that was basically the approach, I believe. Andy White and Omar Khan, get some vets, utilize the 4 picks in the top 80 in the draft, and see what you do have in your young quarterback.
Absolutely. So I just look at the Steelers as a team. Like if I'm in the AFC North right now, I mean, it's one of the toughest divisions of football. I have to be a little concerned if I'm a fan of Cincinnati, Cleveland, or Baltimore. I mean, Pittsburgh looked like they were going to be a team that, after Roethlisberger left, now they're going to fall off for a while. But I really thought when you traded for Minkah Fitzpatrick, now I'm a little biased for Minkah. I went to school with his dad in high school, so I've known about Minkah since he was very small. So he's one of my favorites. But I think Minkah had a big play in changing your culture too. I remember when they made that trade, like, wow, first round pick for Minkah. I said, no, that's more than good enough for Minkah. And I think that kicked off with getting Kenny Pickett. So I think you guys are absolutely on a great trajectory.
Yeah, Kevin Colbert, that probably was his best move as general manager of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Believe it or not, I think this guy will get the call from Canton. But to get Minkah Fitzpatrick from the Miami Dolphins at that time, you think about saving your season. The Steelers were dead. A lot of injuries that happened. Remember, this is Big Ben. He's out. So to get a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick, I believe most interceptions and touchdowns since he was drafted in the National Football League, I believe that list is like Minkah Fitzpatrick and Marcus Peters. But this is a guy that immediately, first game, we actually played the 49ers week 1. First game versus as a member of the Steelers was versus the 49ers. Had an interception and a forced fumble. What a hell of a first impression, man.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And not only did you have free agency, but you guys had a hell of a draft. Like we talked about this in great detail over the summer and throughout the draft process, Senior Bowl, combine, et cetera, et cetera. And I had a little something put together to pay some respect to one of the better draft classes. I think you guys probably won the draft this year. Let's take a look there.
Oh, good stuff.
So, yeah, man. Broderick, I'm gonna go through it real quick, man. We got Broderick Jones, Joey Porter Jr., Keanu Benton, Darnell Washington, Nick Herbig, Corey Trice, and Spencer Anderson. We talked a lot about a few guys on that list, man. Keanu Benton, Broderick Jones, and Darnell Washington. I think those are 3 of the guys that you and I talked about in great detail over the throughout the draft process, man. And what has it been like getting those young guys? And I mean, when I say young guys, I mean like these are high quality football players that are coming to the National Football League, and I don't think Darnell Washington is as polished as some of the other names on that list, but the talent and the potential is oozing out of that 6'7", 265-pound frame that ran under a 4.6. So I like when you have that, when you have all of that, man. Like, what is that? What type of juice does that inject into your building when you can bring those high level, high quality football players into your building to an already good team?
Well, I mean, the unique thing about the draft process, and you talked about, we went toe to toe with that. Beyond me and Whittle, we've ran out of the actual trial. So for the PFF mock draft, the mock draft simulator, I think what Whittle, like 4 or 5 days before the draft, they asked for a $29 or $39.99 subscription because we had cranked out so many mock draft algorithms possible.
So it was you two. It was you two that caused that. Okay, I knew it.
I'll probably throw Yuji and Inshallah in there, but the fact that we were able to not just bond, but most of all just talk football in a manner of we're watching preseason, like he said, you're just so much abreast. But to answer your question, with 4 picks in the top 80, that's how you capitalize. You have to take advantage of the opportunity to get these, I think, homegrown talent. And when I say homegrown talent, they did their thing in college. They come from programs that translate tangible football players. You look at University of Wisconsin, you look at the University of Georgia, you look at Penn State. Those guys can look at you and say, hey, this is my showing pole of what I have of development, what I have in terms of tutelage, and what I have in terms of a finished product, and guys that, play at a high level. The Darnell Washington thing was really unique because you go through the draft process, you talk about your needs. That round, in the third round, pick 80, that's possible where you probably would get a middle linebacker. You might get a slot corner, possibly because of the Cam Sutton. But can you fathom not taking a guy with this potential? The first time he ran routes, I believe it was an rookie minicamp, and there was a tweet that went by like overtime and just like, wow, Darnell Washington can't run routes. And you look at the kid's development to right now, in the Bucs game, I got a 3rd and 10 when he was able to run to the sticks. And if not converted, I think he got 9 yards. His overall ability to be coachable, not to make the same mistakes, and then the blocking aspect. Darnell Washington, he's a guy that no matter from day one was going to come in and be one of your better blockers on your football team. That is a draft superlative. That is a draft value. And we were able to maximize that in the Bucs game. You look at Calvin Austin. Jet sweeps, folks, they don't work sometimes when you don't get leverage and enough hats on the head on the perimeter. A guy like Darnell Washington, a guy next to Jack Gentry when you go 13 personnel with a guy like Broderick Jones from next to you, it's just a numbers game, and you're playing against a really superior elite defender or IQ that has the ability to knife through that. You look at a guy like Nick Herbig in the 4th round. I mean, the guys like Broderick Jones, I think his development will be key. I think he'll have an opportunity to play later in the season. I don't know if you baptize him against a Myles Garrett and a Nick Bosa. Maybe you bring him up against Houston, Texas, Will Anderson. I'm not sure, but you look at Joey Porter Jr. Has had a kind of a steep learning curve, but you should, right? Playing cornerback in the National Football League, playing at that position is not easy, but the kid has to learn how to tackle better, open field, but he's coachable as well. You got a Patrick Peterson, you got a Mika Fitzpatrick. It's funny thing, Deontay Johnson, he said, man, you're not at Penn State, you got to stop holding. Those type of battles, iron sharper iron, I think Joey Porter Jr. will be able to play at minimum a base defense. We talked about Darnell Washington, Nick Herbig. I mean, Nick Herbig out of Wisconsin, to get a guy that, you look at Leo Chenot, you look at a TJ Watt, they're doing their thing, looking at Jim Leonard, looking at how they develop and get these guys pro ready. 1.5 second a preseason game versus the Bucs. Very violent. A smaller guy that was able to show up in a run game. That's huge for a young rusher that's already in a gauntlet playing behind TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and then Marcus Golden, who had 11.5 sacks, I believe, in 2020. Corey Trice, man, prayers up. Kid, unfortunately, had a serious injury, is on injured reserve, and that hurts because a cornerback room, you lack numbers, you lack bodies. When that type of injury happens, everybody's picking order goes up. And then Spencer Anderson, man, I love the draft. We talked about him, Whittle. Spencer Anderson is a guy not only from the University of Maryland, but he is a positional chess piece. He plays center, guard, and tackle University of Maryland. In his preseason game, he played every position but center, and he had an 86.5 PFF grade. I mean, that is the cement, I believe, on your draft class when your 7th round pick is playing at that type of level.
Absolutely. When that, like, general managers, in my opinion, you don't justify your paycheck by hitting in the first and the second round. But when you start getting value, third round, fourth round, fifth round, sixth round, seventh, and when you can find value consistently throughout the draft, throughout your tenure on day 3 and late day 2 picks, when you can do that, that's when you got a real good general manager. That's why I love Brandon Beane, man. He can every single year he gets us at least one on day 3, and he'll get us one on day 2. So with that being said, man, like the homegrown talent is, we definitely see it, right? We definitely see it. I think all out of the guys that you draft, out of the guys that you've drafted over the last couple of years, like I can't even think of anybody who really hasn't been a contributor. I mean, the one that kind of jumps out is Chase Claypool, 6'4", two and some change, extremely fast. He had all the measurables, but for whatever reason, he just didn't work out. But you guys rectified that situation by taking in the second round last year George Pickens and giving Kenny Pickett, the quarterback that you selected, a target to grow with, like that. And when I look at that connection, I think about what could have been with Josh Allen and Justin Jefferson. Have we not traded that pick to get Stephon Diggs? Don't get it twisted. I love Diggs. I'm happy he's here. But what could have been if we kept that pick and took Jettis and then draft? Then where are we now? Like what do we have to look forward to now? I mean, well, what we have to look forward to is paying Justin Jefferson $40 million a year, but I mean, but I mean, listen, everything worked out. That's one of those win or trade where everybody won. But Kenny Pickens to George Pickens, we have seen Kenny Pickett to George Pickens. We've seen the connection a couple of times, and I mean, it looks like the next great connection, man. So talk to us about that connection y'all got brewing down there, man.
Yeah, had a couple moments in the Buffalo game. You get losing by 30, but you look for resolve. You look for a team to continue to fight. A lot of people don't remember DeMar Hamlin, Kenny, they actually got into it, and then James Daniel on the sideline by itself. So there was team still fighting to the whistle. That doesn't show up in the box score. And George Pickens had a couple of moments that shows you like, okay, we got to get this guy to football. Kenny Pickett, George Pickens, highest completion rate in terms of a duo in the passer rating category of any combination of football. You look at the targets and completions that they had, better than like a Hill and Tagovailoa, better than like a Kelsey and Mahomes. So those statistics is what you look for when you do invest in a first round quarterback and a second-year receiver. Listen, the second-year pick for George Pickens might have been greedy, some will say, because of the talent that was on the board. But again, sometimes the talent or the potential is greater than the statistics or what you see right now in the kid. The future is bright, and sometimes you take that ceiling, and that's what you have in both of them. But most of all, both of them, their second year. The Buffalo Bills, you talked about the similarities. I think your second and third year players pride themselves in taking a jump in that trajectory or point of their career. And that's what you're looking at possibly right now for Kenny Pickett and George Pickens. These guys are accelerating at a really nice rate at both retrospects of their position. The processing, quarterback mobility, keeping your head down the field, taking what the defense gives you, embracing the check down, throwing the football out of bounds, throwing, with your head looking and not, the nonsense of not looking through, but looking at the football field, because sometimes when you throw the football, you're not seeing the field, you're just looking at the defender. And Kenny did that on tape. George Pickens, sometimes when you come from an ACL injury and the timing, and then you get on a moving fast train, trying to get reps with Mr. Trubisky and Kenny Pickett, your route tree is already pedestrian. You're looking at it right now in the preseason game, just something really tangible. Steelers did not have one completion of 25 yards or more last year. They had one in the preseason game. That's just a dynamic of something really short. I'm really happy on the kids. Ryan Clark came out and said that he has possibly more talent. He brought up Justin Jefferson. And I'm not going to agree with that, because I think Jefferson is a top 2 receiver. But what I will tell you is that Kenny Pickett did say that he is the most talented receiver that he's ever played with. and everyday Whittle and beyond. You're hearing about it in training camp. One-handed catch, George Pickens oozes and oozes again. So I'm really excited to see the development. Schematics matter though. Defenses are going to throw different looks at Pickett and Pickens to try to figure out if this is a real connection or was this an ability of taking advantage of a soft vanilla defense. So just something to look out for, how defenses adjust coverage-wise and schematically to that duo.
Well, regardless of what they try to do, you even if Pickens is doubled or not open or getting blanketed, you guys got Freiermuth, you got Deontay, you got Calvin, you got Calvin. I mean, you got a bunch of weapons, man. Oh, and by the way, they can run the football with Najee, right? So
Jaylen Warren, yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean the weapons and the weapons and the talent on that roster, man. And it's the thing that I love about it so much is not only is there talent there, but it's all young talent and it's going to grow together. So for the next few years, man, y'all got a lot of good players, a lot of contributors on rookie deals. Eventually, it's going. Eventually, them checks got to get written. Yeah, eventually, but right now, man, ride it out, and the sky's the limit. But Beyond, go ahead, man. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. No, you mentioned Kenny Pickett in that second half against the Bills. The comparison between him and Josh was so amazing to me. Whittle, you remember Josh's first game, the Vontae Davis retirement game? It was against the Chargers at home. And what I remember most is second half. I come out and they come out on TV. You see Josh Allen in the defensive huddle just barking at the players, right? The Bills gave up 3 points that second half. We didn't win. Josh threw 2 touchdowns, right? Led 2 touchdown drives. But I think that was such a tone setter for Josh, right? I thought what I saw to Pickett in that Bills game, like even though I was like, oh, we won, it was a big win for the Bills. I was, man, Pickett was still fighting at the end. He was still, playing his game and making some good plays. Like I think that was a great tone setter for Kenny, right? In his first start against one of the best defenses in the league on the road against we were a Super Bowl favorite at the time. So I thought he handled that really, really well. Like sometimes, like you said, the box score may not show it. You may say, the Steelers were terrible. And, the defense just had an off day for them. It wasn't typical, what we're used to from Pittsburgh. But when you look closely, I saw a young quarterback that, I think there's a lot there for Kenny Pickett going forward.
Yeah, you make really, really great points, Beyond. The unique thing about the Kenny Pickett situation was that was his first start. And you look at the dynamic about it, getting first-team reps, getting familiar with your eligibles matter, but it's tough to do that or simulate that in a practice setting going against one of the best defenses in football. You look at the game, a couple of events spiraled out of control before Kenny Pickett got the football. A muff punt, advantageous opportunity for Josh Allen, and then a 99-yard touchdown after I think a questionable call to send Minka Fitzpatrick on a blitz, Gabriel Davis to be one-on-one with Levi Wallace and Trey Norwood bracketing. So the game had already spiraled out of control, but you look at it through 300 yards and then show that resolve. That's something that you build with the next week. Now, I don't want you to justify. I don't want to justify the performance or the numbers, but we're just showing you that the first time ever playing, there were so many tangible things. The kids' development, the kids' work ethic, the kids' leadership has really just been off the charts. The velocity and throwing the football, was able to gain weight. Also, 2 concussions. So all he did with the summer was learn how to strengthen the neck bone. So when you do get hit, you're able to control the fall. That's a technique. Jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, they're teaching that. So his overall ability and to embrace who he is, got married. I'm really excited about the trajectory of the kid. I think he's a top 7 quarterback potential because you look at the eligibles, you look at the offensive line, but just his acceleration. Everything that we see, the good quarterbacks, they don't make the same mistakes over. And if they do make mistakes, it's usually a coverage. It's usually a hiccup, a running back or a tight end drop the ball and, able to catch a bubble catch. You look at like a Josh Allen. I'm going to give you one that I think Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence second-year step should probably be with the Steelers fans is a reasonable expectation, right? Take that step. The numbers back it up, and you win a playoff game. That is what I think reasonable expectations for year 2 for Kenny Pickett.
Absolutely. Just beyond you said, sometimes the box score doesn't show it, but his box score showed it. 327 yards, man, against the Buffalo Bills. Who, I mean, I can't even remember the last time we didn't rank in the top 7 in pass defensive metrics. Whether you're talking about DVOA, you're talking about points allowed, you're talking about yards allowed, completion percentage, things like that. The Buffalo Bills always rank very high defending the pass. So for him to go out there his rookie year and in his first start, though, for 327 against the Buffalo Bills, man, that's not something you scoff at. But that brings us to Saturday, right? I believe the game is Saturday, right? The game is Saturday in Pittsburgh.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
Saturday in Pittsburgh. They got it's Bills versus Steelers in Pittsburgh. What are we looking for? What are the expectations? What are you looking to see, Guru?
Well, first thing is you do both expect your starters to be available. I know you guys got a lot of coming back from injury. I think the availability of the opponent matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's key. I'm looking to see who plays because I think Tomlin and McDermott are tacticians, and they want to give the young guys the best reps and best looks possible. But immediately I'm looking at both trenches. I think your pass rush has the ability to have so many guys. I know the Jets are getting a lot of buzz, but I think it's a similar infrastructure. Hound after hound for 4 quarters that have versatility. We're gonna see a lot of different looks. And when you have an offensive line, the one that we have in terms of a Najee Seumalo joining the fold, pretty much all the stable guys, I want to see that experience. I want to see if they're able to pick up blitzes. I want to see if they're able to communicate because I think we're going to really get good looks. I think the Bucs pretty vanilla. I think they were pretty vanilla because they didn't have a lot of guys available. But I'm curious to see the one-on-one matchups like Isaac Seumalo and a James Daniel with like a Ed Oliver and a Phillips, and then like the Boogie Bashams, the Gregory Rousseau's. I'm looking to see Broderick. I'm looking to see Broderick one-on-one, possibly against those guys. I think that's a good formidable rep. But also to Dan Moore Jr. And then you look at the other position battles. I mean, look at the defensive line versus your offensive line. I think your offensive line did make changes. Is really more experienced at certain points that you weren't last year. That's going to allow you. Then the acquisition of Osiris Torrance. That's basically a young thoroughbred that you're ready to put out there at any moment. So those are going to be him versus Keanu Ben, him versus DeMarvin Leal, Armon Watts. I mean, folks, if you just watch the Buffalo Bills game, just watch the pig nose of the football. That's where the game I think everybody's going to be looking at. Yeah, you'll have the George Pickens, Kyer Elam, you'll have the Christian Benford, Calvin Austin matchups, but up front, the big sexies, right? The guys that get no publicity out there in the football field. Those are the matchups on both sides that I'm really going to be penciled in looking at, man.
Absolutely, that's the same on this side, man. Like I looked at. I don't know if you got a chance to take a look at our game last week, but we played the Colts, and I felt like the offensive line held up. Second unit, they held up pretty well. Third unit, they held up pretty well. I was like, all right, man, the offensive line looks cool. We was able to run the football. We were able to win at the point of attack, but that's against the Colts. So I need to see what these guys are going to do when they're up against a Keanu Ben, a Cam Hayward, Alex Highsmith, Marcus Gold. Like, I need to see what let me see what you're going to do, Spencer Brown, when you facing a TJ Watt, right? Let me see what you're going to do when you lined up with an Alex Highsmith who had what do you have, 14 sacks last year?
14 and a half, yep.
14 and a half sacks last year. So that's what I want to see. These are high-level matchups that are going to tell me a lot about my football team. Kyer Elam got targeted and basically he got picked on. Kenny Pickett picked on him last year in that game. And Kyer Elam, I'm sure he's a very competitive individual, so I'm sure he's chomping at the bit to get back, to get some get back. Yeah, what you got, man?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Guru.
No, I was just going to say one more point is that you talk about good looks from your young defense. Well, they'll get really good looks because Mason Rudolph and Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, you look at not necessarily pecking order of quarterbacks, but just they get that experience. You're gonna get a quarterback that's been in the NFL for a long time, and he's gonna be able to really utilize his experience. So if your young dudes do play well, because I just think that's really something that you should be able to gauge. Because usually when you're playing against in the fourth quarter, you're playing against a quarterback that doesn't have the experience or doesn't have like the reps of a Rudolph or Trubisky. So that's all, brother.
I mean, this is the kind of defense.
My fault. Not just their experience, but the athleticism, because they offer something that, I mean, we did see a little bit of that with Anthony Richardson, but after that, I mean, you got Sam Ellinger, you know, Case Keenum, like, I mean, not Case Keenum. Who's the backup over there?
Gardner Minshew.
Gardner Minshew, yeah. So I mean, those guys are not the caliber of athlete that a Mason Rudolph or Mitchell Trubisky is. Like, those guys will pull the ball down and take off, especially Trubisky. He played here, so you know. I'm sorry, Beyond, but I mean that's just another wrinkle that this matchup is going to provide my defense. You know the issue at middle linebacker. So whoever's playing middle linebacker is going to have a hell of a job to do this weekend. They got to deal with Freiermuth and the middle of the field. They're gonna have to worry about the checkdowns. You got Warren and Najee Harris that are going to be attacking these run gaps, and you got to fill the right gap and make sure. And tackling Najee Harris is a business decision. Like, he is not a small back, so you know if you fill in that gap, you better. I mean, this is not a tuxedo game, man. This is the overalls and lunch pail game, man. Like, this is, you know what I'm saying? This is the bring your hard hat to work game. So,
and to get this type of matchup in the preseason is just so valuable, man.
Yep. Because
especially this week, because we're going to see more starters this week instead of like next week, as an example.
Right. Next week is rehearsal for teams who don't, like the Jets and Browns, who don't have 4 preseason games. One more thing too, the special teams factor. I'm looking at Calvin Austin, for instance. Last week, the Bucks game, Jordan Berg got a lot of the kickoff and punt return specialist opportunities. I think Calvin Austin will probably get maybe 1 or 2 kicks and punt returns. I'm looking at that. And I'm also looking at Chris Boswell. Chris Boswell had a lot of hamstring injuries last year that really hindered his progress, and that matters. I'm looking at that because you might want to make a move. There will be some tough cuts in the next couple of weeks that you want to make sure you're able to cement for the practice squad, cement for the 53, and most of all, just do some scouting, because injuries, unfortunately, do bite at the worst in opportune times.
Absolutely. What do you think the key? Well, we already kind of went through the key matchups. It's definitely the trenches, different things like that. The trenches, and then you know you got your young guys that are going to be fighting to turn the heads of the coaches. Beyond, what do you look at as like what are your projected like key matchups for the game coming up this weekend?
Well, I mean, you know, listen, for where we want to be, this is the perfect defense to gauge, right? I mean, if we want to make the Super Bowl, we may not even play defense as good as Pittsburgh, but you could guarantee they're going to be close to that level. So I think Spencer Brown, just seeing how he holds up against, you know, let's see how we hear about how he's been doing good in camp. I want to see where he is at this point. I want to see how Torrance handles, you know, his first game on the road in the NFL. Granted, it's a preseason game, but again, this is a big boy defense, as we call it, right? Not to shed bad on the Colts, but Pittsburgh's a whole nother level. So really, our offensive line, to me, is one of the pain points, especially the right side. That is what I am focused on this weekend, and to see how that transpires. And you made a great point about the middle linebacker and all the assignments that we have, and all the different problems that Pittsburgh's offense is gonna show us.
Yeah, that's my key matchup, man. Middle linebacker, our linebackers versus these running backs and these tight ends, man. I mean, Darnell Washington.
Yeah, no,
go ahead, brother.
No, I was gonna say I sent you the Valladay kid because you know Najee Warren, you know, they get the noise, but McFarland and I think Valladay, who were able to just got cut from the Texans. football at its highest level in terms of scouting. Glenn Thomas, OC, Arizona State, last 4 seasons, is our new offensive analyst. So we were able to snag him up, I think on like a 750,000 signing bonus, like lucrative deal for this kid to be a 4th running back. You're going to get and that's why I'm so excited. You're going to get so many good looks. This game is not just a preseason game because guys, they're going to get probably the best reps possible. They'll get the entire process. And then on top of it, these vets, the safety duo that you have, the depth back there, those guys are going to be able to throw a lot of looks in our quarterback room. You look at the tight ends, Darnell Washington against a Dorian Williams in the run back on backers opportunity, stopping the run, and then you play action. It's just this is not your typical preseason game. It really isn't. And NFL Network, they didn't reward us because if you don't have NFL Plus, you're going to have to stream it. But I'm really excited about this football game, man.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that they didn't put us on, to be honest with you. I was really shocked. That
you would think that, like, listen, man, we had to sit through Denver and who was it? Was it
Arizona
last year on Thursday Night Football? You would think that they would make a Steelers Bills game, even though it's the preseason. You would make that a game that you would feature. The NFL, I mean, sometimes, man, I don't know what they be thinking about.
The Steelers always bring the ratings. I mean, and then also Josh Allen possibly playing, and to see how Kenny Pickett's doing in year 2. I mean, I agree.
Pittsburgh, it's you got a lot of guys on your team that went to the University of Pittsburgh. I mean,
that's true.
I just
Hamlin, Jack, Dane went there.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we got somebody else. I don't know. We'll figure that out later.
Well, just a programming note, they are replaying it on the NFL Network 7 a.m. on Sunday and 8 p.m. on Wednesday of next week. So for anybody out there that doesn't
they don't even put it on when you're up. 7 a.m. on a Sunday.
7 a.m. Yeah.
Hey, you got to get NFL Plus, man. You got to get NFL Plus, man. That's the thing.
You can watch it whenever. Yep.
That's it, man. $4.99 to change your life. You can stop coming to these spaces saying wow stuff that ain't true.
Shout out to Roland, man.
Yeah. Hey, I had one more thing for Guru. I had one more thing for you. What's your I mean, you don't even have to you can give win-loss record if you want, but what's your general expectation for this season, right? Going in, like, if you as a fan, thinking it through, like, what do you think's going to happen? I'm very high in you guys. I have you guys surprised at everybody winning this division. I know it's a little bit bold, but I'm just curious what you think.
So you just really just think about how we got here process. A lot of fans, they suffer because the team held on to Ben too long. And what that means is that you never can start a succession plan until he leaves. You can look at, we drafted Mason Rudolph. The reports came out. He said he wouldn't mentor him. Just that type of ego, and rightfully so. 2-time Super Bowl champ. A guy that I think is a first ballot Hall of Famer. So replacing a first ballot Hall of Famer is a process in itself. And when you're 27 like myself and your first time seeing a losing season, last year you're looking at the game abnormal because you don't understand what happened. But again, how did we get here? That's the repercussions when you don't have the infrastructure, you don't have basically. So the succession plan was Ben and Colbert out, Kenny, Omar in, and now you're seeing the fruits of that. Don't forget, like you said, we talked about earlier, the Minkah Fitzpatrick. Drafting Kenny Pickett, drafting George Pickens. Kevin Colbert deserves a lot of respect, but the roster from top to bottom has significant holes. Robert Spillane, Keller Witherspoon playing meaningful spots. Andy Weidel and Omar Khan, they want to give themselves an opportunity to win from the start. And when you have that logic, you look at a TJ Watt, 7-1 when he played. You look at Kenny Pickett in the last 8 games. You look at him being 1-0 against the Baltimore Ravens and 1-0 against the Cleveland Browns. And then you go in the offseason with 4 picks in the top 80. You go into the offseason. You tell people, hey, I'm going to stick by Matt Canada. That's showing dividends right now. So what I'm showing you is that they have showed you that the Pittsburgh Steelers organization is still at the pinnacle. Now, the talent, there are a lot of hypotheticals. We got to see what happens. But if you win 9 games last year, if you win 9 with Devlin Hodges and Mason Rudolph, how many do you possibly think you can win with a Kenny Pickett? The answer is usually 10 or 11. You think about the 4th easiest schedule. You play about 5 to 6 teams with a first-year quarterback or first-year head coach. That's advantageous with the experience that the young team had already had the Baltimore Ravens game, the Oakland Raiders game, those were big, steep circumstances, and those young guys, they prevailed, and that will help them moving forward next year against easier competition. But like you guys are football savants, doing something more on the job, the experience and the performance is just going to have to be better, right? And if it's not, you probably aren't going to be working or doing the thing where you're at right now. So I say 11 or 12 wins, and then winning a playoff game should be, Guru or just anybody reasonable expectations. Can they surpass that? Absolutely. But if you don't win 9 games, if you get to the playoffs and get manhandled against possibly a Buffalo Bills, then you start having question marks, or it's a calling card. We're just not there yet. So it's so many different variables, but I definitely think should be a division favorite. So many uncertainty. This football thing is, you don't take it for granted. You look at Joe Burrow, you look at Marlon Humphrey. I'm just talking AFC North. The hierarchy can change at any moment. The Pittsburgh Steelers can be affected. So I'm just bringing up, that's just an honest approach I think about that question.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. I tend to agree with you. That like you guys didn't really go through a rebuild. Like, I mean, it was really like, I don't even think that counts. What was it, like one season where you didn't make the playoffs? That's it. So I mean, that's not really a rebuild. It's more like a retool and whoever was the architect on getting a second round pick for Chase Claypool, that individual is goated. Okay, he's goated because
put a statue up in front of the stadium for that guy.
Listen, to be able to commit that type of robbery without a gun is admirable. I mean, that was just the first pick in the second round. I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, and I'm just sitting there waiting and saying, like, all right, we got pick 59, number 2 in round 2. There's no way Keanu's getting to 59. And then when the Steelers picked him up, I was sad, but I was glad at the same time because we had put so much. Me and Guru had spent so much time watching this kid on tape, watching this kid at the senior, watching this kid reps, talking about this guy, talking about like really breaking down his game film from college and watching it translate into OTAs and now you see him in the game where he's literally just moving grown men out the way as if they are just not there. Like the kid's gonna be a star. We knew it in the summertime. They're gonna be talking like you got Chris Jones, you got Aaron Donald, you got Jeffrey Simmons, Quinnen Williams, and Keanu Benton's on his way into that fold because he's right, that Dr. level of talent.
John Allen, but and that's how I feel about Osiris Torrance. That was a guy at that range where we were in the draft, first round. Like, do we take him right there, or with that additional pick, do you take him? But then that's prior to, the Isaac Seumalo acquisition. And then you got a James Daniels. So the Osiris Torrance, when we saw the mocks or mocked him to him, we're like, well, now you're just being greedy. But then Buffalo gets him, and that's how I feel because you might have a situation where Osiris doesn't have to play till after your bye week. That's not all robbery. That's great evaluation.
I remember we were doing our mocks, Whittle. We were thinking Benton to us in the first round. Remember? I mean, just to give you an idea, Guru, like I would have been very happy with that. If we didn't move up for Kincaid, I was kind of hoping for it.
Listen, if it was me, Kincaid would not be on this team.
It was Jack Campbell.
Sign another. Right? Once Jack Campbell came off the board, it was Keanu Benton the bust for me. That was the move for me. Keanu Benton in the first round, and then we figure the rest out. But
and you get him in the second round. Wow.
If we could have got Keanu Benton, bro. Could you imagine
your coaching matters. When we acquired him and drafted him, minicamp, Carl Dunbar, like he wasn't even teaching him, hand movement. He was teaching him leverage. And that shows up on tape against a lot of these guys because you look at the Bucs game, and I'm curious to see the front. He plays tilted. he doesn't traditionally line up even. He's tilted, which basically gives him an opportunity. If he does stay low, he'll have an advantage because he's already slanted in that hole. And that's coaching. That's just something that I'm really, really proud to see. Kind of, you bring up that nice graphic about the young guys. Well, their development. Nick Herbig, I mean, TJ Watt taught him the ghost move. Well, only thing he did in the practice was be unstoppable with the ghost move. Today he has his Alex Highsmith teach him the spin move. That's what you want about your football team. You want guys to take the jersey off, but most of all, still be the football savant, still be the football junkie. And that's what I'm seeing and hearing, not just about the Steelers, about both sides. I mean, I was very, very happy what I've read about James Cook in terms of his development in the pass blocking. I knew Kincaid would develop. Like I said, Boogie Basham. Shout out to Mookie Hawkins. I saw his interview where he had the mic right here, and he said, "Man, listen, his mentality now is something that he's just trying to say that game to game. That's growth." Boogie Basham knows I've been around the sun a little bit longer. I know how to do this, take care of my body. I know how to prep. That's what you're seeing, and I think you won't just see it at those positions. You'll see it probably sprinkled in all over in that Bills Steelers preseason game, man.
Wow, I'm on mute again. Absolutely, man. But we up against it, man. We're gonna we be signing off in a second, man. Guru, thank you, brother, for coming on.
Thank you so
man,
much.
we could talk football. Me and you have talked football for hours and hours and hours throughout the combine. Listen, 3-4 hours long in a space. We watching the combine, talking about guys form, how they look in these gauntlets. I mean, like, when I tell you, like, I respect this brother's football mentality, like his knowledge, his intellect, the way he absorbs the game. Listen, man, hats off to you, brother. I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming through.
Yep. Thank you, Guru. You were the first name I thought of for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Whittle can attest to that. And we'd love to have you on again anytime. So if you want to talk about any teams.
Yeah, likewise. If you want to do a game recap, let me know. And I appreciate that. It's so many other great guys and the good girls too on the Steelers media. So to think of me like that, I appreciate you. It's a team effort. I got the 6-time champ lounge. You know about that. Bills Mafia. This is a team effort. Spaces is a community. And when you're able to talk ball so much, and this is the rewarding part of the labor of you two. So I just appreciate the opportunity, and I'm excited. We got 2 more sleeps, and then about 3:30 at 4 o'clock, we'll be wondering about where the pregame space is at, man.
That's it.
They'll be out there. They'll be out there.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Google, before we let you get out of here, bro, do you have anything that you want to plug before you step off, bro?
Nah, bro. Just Sports Guru on Twitter. Just one of those guys, man. Believe it or not, nothing without God. Come from a good family, and just really a football addict. And it just really is beautiful to be able to talk ball with even-minded people on social media, and we use Twitter. So now that's it, man. Shout out to the Coast to Coast. Shout out to Whittle 2K, Beyond 716, Bills Mafia, for having me tonight. And this is a great setting, man. I saw the graphic, man. I know how you do. So your day job, graphic design aside, we have to talk, man, because that was a dope graphic. And when you put it up there, I'm like, man, that's dope stuff. But Beyond, man, I appreciate you guys, man.
Hey, man,
Thank you, Guru.
Thank you.
All right,
Stay
man.
blessed, Guru.